we always said when it came to push comes to shove, in Brexit in particular, it would be, of course, a matter of supply chains. Of course, Europe is our largest market for a whole number of things, not only to buy and sell stuff, but in particular, we have seen over the couple of years where we've had big, global geopolitical and economic crises from COVID, showing that shorter supply lines are actually pretty good, to the fact that you've got the Houthis currently trying to block off, access to the Suez Canal, one of the quickest ways to go from Asia over to Europe instead of having to go all the way around Africa. It is quite a problem. Quite a problem when we have these types of things, and particular, of course, when you have a lot of medicine, of course, that comes from India in particular, and of course, these big cargo ships are now having to go around all the way around Africa. That now increases supply, well, at least the supply line, the time it takes, and yes, as you will see here, a matter of like an extra 2 or 3 weeks can have quite big monumental consequences for supply chains. And we are now seeing, especially in the UK here, one of the biggest medicine shortages in 4 years. And Brexit is a key factor in that. Worth bringing up again that, this was something that a lot of people said, and, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll just get, medicine from elsewhere." Well, and bear in mind, we are probably gonna find out on April 2nd what those Donald Trump tariffs are gonna be, not just for, us and the EU as well, uh, but we're gonna find out, and I wouldn't be surprised if our economy does take a very, very big hit because of it. And then eventually, where do you turn to? Can't really turn to America because Donald Trump is going to basically, as we've already heard, we've already covered this, demand God knows what from some kind of trade deal. Meanwhile, I've sort of course said before, all you have to do to at least, jangle the keys a bit in front of him is just go, well, okay, we'll jangle the keys a bit, and we're just having trade negotiations. We just need to, dot the I's, cross the T's. And meanwhile, of course, you have negotiations and you try and just keep them running on for as long as you can. And meanwhile, you hope that at least you can say, oh, well, let's, have some, exemptions while we're, negotiating this stuff. We can at least hope. But bear in mind, as we've said before, the adults particularly are no longer in the room in the Donald Trump administration. So I'm not really that sure anymore we are going to get exemptions. And the other thing that we've always talked about, the more, shall we say, the orange hurricane doth blow, the more we are going to get pushed back into Europe. It's inevitable. Inevitable. Bear in mind, we've already had just very recently, indeed, Germany come out and say, hey, UK, you should rejoin the customs union. And to all the people who keep on saying we would never be, quote, allowed back, how do you respond to that? Like, how do you respond to that? Like Germany saying, hey, come on back. Hey, I've always said one of the likely reasons we'll probably end up back in the EU will be piecemeal. And it would not shock me for us to see rejoining the customs union. Would not shock me to see that. Because as the Germans rightly pointed out, doesn't actually cross any of the red lines that Keir Starmer has put out from these negotiations that he's been staying to, like, rebuild the UK EU relationship. Hey, it's all possible, but we are going to have a look back into this, that we are seeing a big medicine shortage in the UK. This is a problem. I think you can work out quite obviously why a medicine supply would be quite problematic in the UK. But of course, like I say, please do remember to click the like, share, and subscribe button down below. There are links to my Patreon page, the one-off Dash link called Buy Me Coffee, Wake You Well, Buy Me Coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the Pony Club down below as well. So let's go over to The Guardian, where they were talking about this as well. Brexit, key factor in now the worst UK medicine shortage in 4 years. So, drug shortages in the UK have now risen to their worst levels for 4 years. Official figures have shown, with Brexit now considered the key reason as to why so many of these medicines are now so scarce. Drug companies have notified the Department of Health and Social Care about the disruptions to the supply at least 1,938 times during the last year alone, and the highest number since 2021. Medications to treat epilepsy, cystic fibrosis, can't say it, there we go, are of course those that the pharmacists are now finding it hard or impossible to get hold of, creating lots of risks now for patients' health. Figures have now also emerged from a new report by the Nuffield Trust, saying that they obtained them under the Freedom of Information Act to oversee the availability of the drugs UK-wide. The number now of supply disruptions fell after 2021, and of course is now in 2023. But of course, the sudden stop again last year shot up now, as now the data shows. Mark Dillon, a policy analyst at the Nuffield Trust, says that it is the Brexit programme lead, said this wave now of medicine shortages has already meant that people are now struggling to find the drugs that the doctors have told them that they will need for the conditions like epilepsy and cystic fibrosis. It is very worrying. This now appears to be rolling at full force now into a third year. What a surprise. The report says that while the drug shortages have become a problem globally in recent years, the UK is, of course, now in a worsening situation compared with the rest of Europe because of Brexit. The elevated and, of course, troubling levels of medicine shortages are continuing with no consistent sign of improvement. The UK has had the lowest import of growth in medicines of any G7 country, driven, of course, by a reduction in EU imports, the think tank said. The current United Nations data said that the analysis shows that for the UK is once again had the lowest rise in imports of medicines of all G7 countries since 2010. The total value of imports has fallen by almost 20% since 2015, the year before the EU referendum. In cash terms, an indication of how medicine supply chains have now shifted away from the UK, the report says, with very little sign of any stable recovery since. HMR Customs Revenue says that the data has been, quote, in decline in imports and now focused very clearly on imports from the EU, adding now to the evidence that the new trade barriers related to Brexit are the likely explanation. In addition, UK drug exports to the European Economic Area, the EU 27 states plus Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein, have fallen by a third since and before the UK voted in 2016 to leave the EU. So I think you can obviously work out why this is bad. I think you can obviously work out why this is bad. But this is, first of all, this is a global issue. And of course, as we said, Brexit is making it worse. And one of the things we always said back in 2016, if we were out of the EU, global shocks will affect the UK more. And this is a global shock because it is happening around the world. As you saw there from the data, from that stuff, the medicine supply chain shortage isn't actually getting better. It seems to be getting worse globally. The fact that we are not in the EU makes it sort of worse. Once again, Brexit compounding issues that the UK faces. Now, ultimately, this does lead to, and it really has led into, supply chain changes, manufacturing changes that have happened through years, and it is now certainly that countries are now going to have to get their medicine supplies, or at least medicine, factories, maybe even more domestically, or even try and shorten those supply routes as much as possible. But that'll take a long time to do. That'll take a long time to sort out. It's not something you can just click your fingers and magically change. It will take a long time to sort out potentially. And in the meantime, global medicine shortages. And because of Brexit, that global shock makes it an even worse situation for the UK. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think down below. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.